Parliament's Communications Committee Chairperson Boyce Maneli says the committee hopes to inform the National Assembly of the committee's way forward and a new decision on the names of the candidates to serve on the SABC Board. He says the committee will also give an indication on whether to seek independent legal advice, as was suggested by the ANC in the subcommittee with objections from the EFF and the IFP. Maneli was closing the subcommittee meeting, which met late last night, which basically went in after midnight, on whether to stick with the 12 recommended names or choose new 12 names from all 15 names that were submitted to President Cyril Ramaphosa. Now, Michael Markovitz, the head of Gibs Media Leadership think tank and former SABC Board member, joins us to discuss this. Michael, thanks for joining us. Good to have you on the program.
Good morning, Leanne.
Can I ask you a very simple question? Why did last night's parliamentary proceedings even go ahead? I thought that was all finalized and it was just up to the president. What's going on?
Well, Leanne, you raise actually an excellent point straight off. There's many of us, and I must obviously just disclose that I deposed a supporting affidavit to the constitutional litigation by Media Monitoring Africa, compelling the president to appoint the 12 names that were recommended to him on the 6th of December and only sent to him on the 20th of December. So I'm just a supporting part of that litigation. But what I understand, Leanne, from the law on the subject is that there was no need for the president to send it back to Parliament. The president had 12 names clearly delineated in front of him in a letter from the Speaker on the 20th of December. And it said, here are the 12 names that have been appointed, and where Parliament made an error, which is unlawful, is it added 3 names as a reserve pool. Now, most of us who have looked at this letter, and it's public domain now, see that the 12 names were very, very clearly delineated. And it is our view that the president could have said, I'm hereby appointing the 12 names as I'm required to do, and I'm going to ignore those unlawfully submitted 3 names and move on. Instead, the president, over a period of 2.5 months, Leanne, sent back letters to the Speaker trying to get clarity because he said he couldn't half implement a National Assembly resolution and decide what was lawful and what was not lawful. And he asked Parliament to give him clarity. And that's really the background for the meeting last night, because this committee, through the Speaker, had received a letter from the president. So just to conclude on this point, it is, in my view, unlawful to even begin to consider the president's views on this, because the president is, in effect, Leanne, exercising a veto, which he doesn't have.
Yeah. And that's at the heart of it all here. I mean, it looked like yesterday's sitting of the Portfolio Committee revolved around just 2 issues: whether to submit only 12 names and 3 in the reserve pool, and concern about the former Communications Minister, Minister Ntabani's concern about the flouting of the King 4 Code, without mentioning names. I mean, even though it is common knowledge that this is reference to former head of news, Patiswa Makobeni, as it was revealed in President Ramaphosa's replying affidavit to the MMA court action.
Yes, look, the first that we knew about the minister's letter, which was dated on the 25th of Jan, and the reason I'm mentioning dates is I think chronology is quite important here. There was a public process before the 12 were finally selected. I think you probably remember it took months to vet them. People made representations on the different candidates. There was no representation from the minister or anyone else, in particular on Ms. Magopeni. She was duly selected by consensus, including all political parties. It was included in a list of 12 that was sent to the National Assembly, unanimously approved on the 6th of December. So it was a great surprise that on the 25th of January, when the matter really had been done and dusted, so to speak, to see that a letter was privately sent to the Speaker and obviously the chair of the Portfolio Committee, that the minister was raising concerns about Ms. Magopeni, given her previous position as head of news, and somehow trying to allege that this was a breach of the King Code of corporate governance. Now, I must just say, Leanne, this came as a big surprise because obviously you look at whether the candidates comply with the Broadcasting Act. In the main, those are the qualifications, not to say that the King Code's not important, but it is not a factor in deciding whether or not a candidate complies for these positions. And lastly, on this point is it's very post facto after the event that these issues were raised. And therefore, it's puzzling how such an issue could be raised when the selection had already been made.
Yeah, and this is the point. I mean, this is now 5 months after the fact that we're sitting without a board. And although this process was dreadfully delayed, the whole run-up to the event, which I think what you're talking about, I mean, also, can I ask you, before you were on the board, did the SSA look into you as well?
You know, it's a good question, and I remember getting, cursory questions from the SSA. There was a telephone interview. And I really think that the vetting that delayed the appointment so egregiously by about nearly 3 months was really, I feel, needs to be looked at whether that was really, truly what delayed it, because in my view, it simply cannot be the case that you take 3 months to vet 37 people. And even then, Leanne, I believe, why did the Portfolio Committee agree to vet 37 people? Why did they not choose 12 that they were going to appoint? Just vet the 12. So anyway, so there was a combination of errors, missteps, and I think dereliction of duty, to be fair, on parliaments for starting the process in the first place, at least 2 months too late.
Yeah.
So you've got this compounding effect, because by the time the president got the names on the 20th of December, there'd already been no board for 2 months. And as I said, I remember talking to Sakina around about a month ago, where, when we were compiling our handover report as the outgoing board, we bona fide believed that the delay of the board would be a couple of weeks at the most.
Yeah.
To be sitting here, and I think it is exactly 5 months to the day today, that this organization that you work for, that I care about very deeply, has had no accounting authority. And I'm deeply concerned about the impact, because you may have noticed that the CEO of the SABC said to Scopa last week that there were about 20 business plans revenue-generating business plans that could not be approved because there was no board in place.
Indeed.
So one has to ask the question, what is the thinking behind this delay? People are trying to say that it's not purposeful. As far as I'm concerned, it's a legitimate speculation to make that this has been purposely dragged out.
Yeah. And this is a worry, because as you say, and we've been speaking about this. I mean, we have done numerous interviews. In fact, I've spoken to the CEO himself, throwing allegations that and word that he is the board himself. He's denied it. You've just referred to him saying there's all these business plans that are sitting there that can't go ahead because there is no board approval. And most importantly, we're coming to the financial year end of the SABC, which is at the end of March, going into April. We have no board. This puts us in a very, very precarious situation. And can I ask you, I mean, just blatantly, is this all about one name? Is this whole delay all about one name, that name being Patiswa Magopeni? Is this what this is all about?
Well, I think we can only speculate, because there was no good reason for the president not to simply approve the 12 names that were sent to him. And so now when we finally get Parliament, the Parliamentary Committee to consider the letters of the president, which I said from the outset, I don't believe the president should have even sent it back to Parliament, because he was purporting to exercise a veto over the process, which he does not have. He has no discretion, as I said. To find out that the minister had written a letter about Ms. Magopeni, only about Ms. Magopeni, as far as I can tell, And then this matter was then duly taken up by the ANC MPs on the committee last night, to the actual shock of all the opposition parties, the EFF, the IFP, and the DA, who all strongly opposed changing the 12 names, said, the IFP said it would blow up in our faces. The EFF said there would be legal challenges if her name was removed. And the DA was fairly strident as well. So you had a sense where almost there was a line that was being followed by the ANC MPs to get rid of this one name. And it didn't happen last night. The committee chairman kicked for touch. He said, let's get an external legal opinion. I'm not sure what that's going to achieve. I think that we can say for sure that any external legal opinion worth their salt will confirm that the committee is not empowered to change the 12 names that were voted on and approved by the full National Assembly on the 6th of December. It's simply not lawful to do so.
Michael, very quickly, you know how time works here on TV. The EFF are calling this an absolute abuse of power. There are elections next year. We're not blind to this. And there were issues during the local government elections with the coverage of the SABC and the ANC calling it out and actually naming Patiswa as well as somebody who they felt with, whether it be, the different programs that were put on air and the airtime and all of that stuff, that they were not happy about this. So at the heart of it, can we really call this an abuse of power purely with the knowledge that it is elections? We are moving into elections, and the SABC is a vital part of that.
Look, I can just say, to use the South African parlance of joining the dots, I think one can go ahead and make those speculations. But let me just say one thing about the SABC's election coverage. I can say as a board member at the time, the SABC covered the 2019 election and the 2021 election. And for the first time, Leanne, in many years, civil society, including Media Monitoring Africa, whose business is to monitor elections, said the SABC's coverage of both of those elections was free, balanced, and there were no material complaints. Obviously, we know the ANC was not happy, but I'm talking about an independent assessment of the SABC's coverage. There was no basis to say that the SABC's coverage was anti the governing party or anti the government. It was very fair, as stated by independent parties. So therefore, there's no basis even on that argument to put the blame on the former head of news. I think the teams at the SABC did a fantastic job covering the election in very difficult circumstances, and therefore I don't believe that any of those types of accusations are valid, particularly in this circumstance where Parliament itself, including the ANC, approved her name.
All right. We got to leave it there, Michael. Thank you. Thanks for talking to us. And so the issue continues. 5 months down the line, SABC still no board in place. Michael Markovitz, head of Gibs Media Leadership Think Tank and former SABC board member, talking to us about the delay in the appointment of the new board at the SABC.